Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is the Growth, Infrastructure and Waste Committee, the fifth one for the year, and it's the 8th of June 2023. I call council attendance. I see everyone in attendance except for Councillor Madsen. I believe he'll be here in about 10 or 15 minutes. I don't have any apologies. I'll now move on to the acknowledgement of country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land and waters we share. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging as the keepers of the traditions, customs, cultures and stories of proud people. Thank you. I now seek to see if anyone has any declarations of interest on matters on the agenda. There are nil. Move on to business outstanding, and there is none. So move on to item 1, which is the confirmation of the minutes. So this is the confirmation of the minutes of the Growth, Infrastructure and Waste Committee of the 11th of May 2023. So I'll move those. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Any errors, amendments, corrections? No, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the room. Thank you. We now move on to item 2, which is the proposed Ipswich adopted infrastructure charges resolution. Would anyone like to ask the relevant council officer any questions on this matter? No. In that case, I will move this report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I'll open up for any discussion. No discussion. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. Move on to item 3, which is the provisional projects. Would anyone like to ask the relevant council officer any questions on these projects? No? In that case, I will move this report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Deputy Mayor? Thank you. Open for discussion. I'm always very excited at provisional projects. I don't know if the divisional councils wish to speak to them or not. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. In particularly the Kedge family interpretive sign in Lobley Park, Churchill. There was a request that was brought to me by Mr. Graham Kedge, yes. Former owner of Kedges of Ipswich, multi-generational, long-standing family business in the city, and the story, the backline to it is extremely interesting. How his forebears, the family, came to Australia and to Ipswich, and owned the property which now bounds Lobley Park on Lob Street, and that land was gifted to the city. So a simple item such as that to memorialise and identify that piece of history, I think is well worth the provisional project undertaken.
The Kedge family are very active in our community, whether it's Rotary or helping feed the homeless up at Queen's Park, or at the Ipswich show you often see the Kedge's the older farm machinery going there. And
yes, Mr. Kedge Graham is still extremely active and involved in the community with his work with Beval Rotary.
Yes.
And often see him once a fortnight up in Queen's Park on a Thursday evening doing the good work that they do there.
Yeah, wonderful. Will you be involved in the inscription or what's there, or would that be reviewed by councillors just to make sure that it covers off everything? Or?
Yes, so he has provided a lot of background detail, including the details of the actual ship that sailed that his family arrived on. So there's a bit of story there behind it that will be captured within the plaque.
Okay. I'll just check with the CEO. Will the sign itself be seen by the divisional councils before it's printed, so they could just go review it and things like that?
That would be absolutely fine, of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, CEO. Thank you. I guess the same with the Keith Pennell signs as well.
Yeah, we're working in collaboration with the Bundamba Observance Committee to get those words correct. And Councillor Doyle and I will review them before ultimate approval.
Lovely. Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll put the matter to vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. We'll now move on to item 4, which is the adoption of the new public works policy. Does anyone have any questions of the relevant council officers on this? Yes, Councillor Tyler, yes. May we have the relevant council officer? No, I'll leave that to the organisation. I think Mr Martin's coming.
Good morning, Graham Martin, Acting General Manager, Assets and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr Martin. I think Councillor Tully, you had a question?
Yeah, this is just looking at the draft policy, paragraph 9, the policy details. Am I right in that we wouldn't do what we might, and there is a reference here to private works, except for the exceptions in paragraph 9.2?
So I haven't got that in front. It's 9.2. You had to read that out?
You'll need to see it.
Thanks, Vicky.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. There's nothing in there about specifically, and I know this comes through, I think, a discussion through the Audit Committee, about payment for that. Now, I took it initially that payment for private works on private property, even under the exceptions where we could do it, would always be at the cost of the property owner or the third party. But I can't find anything in the proposed policy that specifically states that. And in particular, in relation to paragraph B, factors beyond the property owner's control. That doesn't necessarily mean the council's responsible for it. It could be a large property. So it's my interpretation, right, that the payment is always required by the third party?
To be honest, it was written, the exact opposite intention is that we would not be doing work and getting paid for it. So perhaps that's something we need to clear up maybe in an opening paragraph, that those items A, B, C and D in 9.2 were more a reflection that if we go in and damage the homeowner's property, we would be liable for it. So we wouldn't be doing that work as a contracted work getting paid. It'd be more along the lines of our rectification. And I guess for... to give you an idea, I guess an example that comes up regularly, say we're doing a new bike path in front of residents' property. So that means we need to make some actual adjustments to levels, and that may mean that the property driveway access suddenly has a sharper dip than it used to have. We would go and rectify that because that is beyond the landowner's ability. What we wouldn't do then is if they said, hey boys, you've got a crew out the front, can you do the concrete from my front fence up to the carport? No, we're out. So the intent of this was to eliminate that work where if we're in the area, the grey area will just continue on a little bit, it won't cost too much. So probably might need to just go back and clarify that
I understand
intent.
what you're saying, that the way those paragraphs are worded are that there would be factors, which I agree with, that it could be in the public interest. For example, some sort of collapse which threatens our property, like not work that we've done and encroaches on their property. There might be some urgent requirement for work on private property.
Yep.
And I think that's good, but it's a council's reputation. It seems to be wide enough to cover those sorts of circumstances, but in the absence of a provision about private works on private property where council's got no connection and no responsibility but might have an overarching community expectation that we might undertake some urgent works. There's no clear, there's no specific reference to payment for that being private works, and I'd always understood that private works...
Councillor Taylor, I think you're probably going to the discussion part because I wouldn't mind contributing to this. But do you have any other questions of Mr Martin?
I just wanted to make sure my interpretation...
I think your interpretation might be a little bit... because you need to look at the whole policy. That's, I think, we should go into when we're into discussion.
I'm happy to do that, yeah, but I just wanted to lay the groundwork for just my concerns that there's no specific.
Well, I think paragraph 9.1 is quite clear that the property owner is responsible for the construction, maintenance and management of the works to be performed on private land. That is, you've got to look at the whole policy that covers that.
Yeah, I understand that.
And the questions of Mr Martin? No, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll move this policy. Do I have a seconder for the policy? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Thank you. Going into discussion, I do support this policy, particularly as it was a recommendation from internal audit from prior practices of the previous council, and I think it's very good to have this wrapped up. I think paragraph 9, which states that the property owner is responsible for the construction, maintenance and management of works to be performed on private land. It should be recognised that a key factor in council not promoting itself for conducting public works is to avoid competing against individuals and or businesses operating and or engaged in the provision of such services within the community. I think that next point 2, also goes to the fact that the General Manager for Asset and Infrastructure Services, who, Mr Martin's in that role, does have some discretion where there are some things there. So I'll open up for discussion. Obviously, Councillor Tully, you have some things you'd like to raise.
Yeah, I agree with paragraph 9.1, 9.2, allied to the comments I was making. And just to make it clear, because there's no provision anywhere in the policy except the general provision in 9.1, but to make it abundantly clear that those private works would always be at the cost of the third party, could I suggest perhaps in paragraph 9, subparagraph 2, after the word works on the third line, we add the words at full cost to the third party.
Could I just unpack that a little bit, because I think that the first sentence of 9.1 is quite clear, because it says the property owner is responsible for the construction, maintenance and management of works to be performed on private land. I kind of think that opening line covers that. And I think 9.2 is actually discussing the discretion that the council have in case there is public interest or safety, or the example that Mr Martin gave, if we were doing footpaths and it made it had an impact on someone's driveway, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you add there, so you want to add if
Just
after the
at the
word
end.
works all.
At the full cost to the third party. Just to make it clear that
Yeah.
the general provision, which I agree with, because then it goes on to provide exceptions to that, and it could be interpreted in the future that the exceptions don't specifically mean that the overriding public interest and other issues. There's nothing in there about the cost. So I think those words at full cost to the third party, which could be the owner, could be the occupier, could be third party company that's got some interest in the land.
Mayor, it just isn't the intention that it actually would be at the cost of the local government?
It is.
Yeah,
In those circumstances where we would actually undertake those works?
Yes.
Well, then
So-
I've got real concern about that, because under paragraph 2B, the damage to the property access is caused principally by factors beyond the property owner's control. Why should the ratepayers be paying for something that's of no consequence to the council?
I agree, and I think Councillor, I think the policy currently covers that, because it says that's at the discretion of the council. It doesn't mean the council is absolutely obligated. It just says it's at the discretion, and council could say, "I'm sorry, so and so's car ran into your, your property. It's your obligation. It's not the council's obligation."
I understand that, but the way I read that 9.2 is that the discretion relates to those four elements, rather than so that we could do the work. If one of those exceptions applies, but the discretion doesn't cover the specific issue of paying for it. I'm not sure if something happens on a private property outside the property owner's control, and outside our control, that the ratepayers should be paying to rectify or minimise the damage.
I guess I come down to the first sentence of 9.1. Sorry, Cindy.
My suggestion is to put it beyond doubt. Put it beyond doubt, because if I read it like that, these policies can be in place for many, many years, and different interpretations could apply.
Correct.
I think best that we take these provisions away, the whole policy really, but 9.1 and 9.2, and just
You'd like to
do some
fine-tune them?
further work, just to given there is such a discrepancy in interpretation, that means we need to, I think, tighten the wording up. So we'll,
Okay,
how about we take it away and we'll do some quick work and try and bring it back to council,
okay.
yes, if that's okay.
I'll just check with, you,
Happy with
You
that.
do
I think
that.
it only needs a little bit of tweaking.
okay. I'll just check with the seconder, councillor Doyle.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was just going to suggest what the CEO has suggested, making last-minute policy changes on the floor here on the fly is probably not good policy writing, so yeah, let's...
Could I
question.
also suggest one other change to the actual recommendation? It talks, this is on page 95 or the first page of the report. It says that the newly created policy, I was going to move, this can be looked at as well, that be changed to the proposed rather than newly created, because it's not created until we adopt it.
The district,
So,
I just want to mark it, councillor Madison.
But if it's going to come off and come back to us, if that wording can be changed too, please. It sort of suggests that we're adopting something that's already been approved.
Yep. Maybe just look at laying this on the table would be the best way, or bring it to the next GIW.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
I'm just checking with the CEO.
Oh, we wouldn't need that much time, Mayor, but if you...
Or you mean to the next ordinary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
In 2 weeks'
I
time?
believe that we could work with internal audit, and the change to the recommendation is very simple, but...
Yeah.
Sorry?
Can I just say that it might be in that opening words of paragraph 9, that it might be the opening words where somewhere in that paragraph rather than
Potentially,
in the
yep.
exceptions, where that could be clarified.
So,
I'm in your hands, whatever you think is best.
okay.
Maybe it's more of a referral than laying
Yeah.
it on the table
So
procedurally.
I guess as the mover of the CEO, I'll propose instead that the recommendation be that we refer this matter to the next ordinary council meeting, which is the 22nd of June. I'll just check with the seconder.
Yes,
You're okay with
confirmed,
that?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, councillor Constable.
Just a reminder that this is about, the primary thing here is about safety issues and council's reputation related to that.
Thank you, councillor. There's nothing else. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 5, which is the Infrastructure Environment Department Capital Delivery Report. May I ask Mr Mark to come back to the lectern, please?
Good morning, Graham Martin, Acting General Manager, Assets and Infrastructure Services Department.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Martin. Could I just commend you, first of all, with the, when you look at the graph on page 102 of the performance of the asset and infrastructure services, an impressive delivery against a very ambitious budget during floods.
Thank you.
What are the main things we need to look at as the end of the financial year comes to an end? Any major projects you're concerned with?
To be honest, no, I don't have any that I'm concerned with coming into May, finishing off May, now coming into June. We went through and had a budget amendment towards the end of April, which sort of tidied up some of the loose ends and some of the projects that had longer lead times. I'm, really comfortable that the projects that have extended and we've proposed to put onto the new financial year budget are mainly about pre-planning issues and not about construction issues. And some of those are quite complicated and some of those involve outside of just council decision making. So really the things that have slipped for very valid reasons and reasons beyond reasonable control. The projects that we've been able to procure this year, yes, we've been subject to some of the price increase pains that the rest of the world has suffered, but in general, we haven't had an explosion of pricing. We haven't gone severely over budget on any of the projects. Again, as we've spoken about and we've had previous conversations with the longer lead projects, Springfield Parkway in particular, because we were pricing that back in 2020 and starting work in 2021, then we've been asked, again, reasonably in these conditions to have some price escalations. But the shorter term projects, I think the estimators and the procurement team have worked well together to make sure that what we're seeing as an end result has not blown out costs significantly. And I think credit to the officers as well for the amount of delivery in an environment where it's very difficult to get contractors and get supplies. We have teams out there at the moment that are ordering pipes and looking 12 months in advance to order pipes, and they're coming from across Queensland, not just local suppliers. We're fortunate to have the land and the security where we can put those in storage and draw down from them as required so that our projects don't fall behind. But that forward planning and being well ahead of the game is a credit to the officers across the organisation.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk a bit about park sports environment, and I see that the Ironbark Park Clubhouse is proceeding. That's really great.
Yes, it
And
is.
same
Yep.
with the Jim Donald Parklands. The Fernbrook Sports Ground lighting project, I think we were expecting that to happen this financial year, but it's not. Do you mind explaining the delay there?
There's probably two key delays in that. One of them is when we procured the design, we came back, I guess part of the increased focus on flood modelling showed that there was flooding in that area. And so the building approval team took the right step and were a bit cautious in giving us the approval first up for our foundations. We've gone back and between the construction teams, the contractor and the building approvals, sort of come to an agreement or acknowledgement that the flooding is backup flooding. So it gets flooded, but it's more, in my words, more of a retention basin rather than a flow of river. So we're able to then step back and amend the foundation. So that had one significant delay because we bounced backwards and forwards. And again, it was a conservative view, but given what we've gone through, sometimes we just need to take a bit of a slower view. The other one that knocked us back, and it's sort of 6 weeks, but it does knock us around a bit. The successful contractor themselves went through a restructure within their business. So where they originally tendered on an ABN number, they then split into two different organisations. So we then had to go back and sequester the contract to those two different ABNs. It just adds time onto the overall delivery. So yes, acknowledge that everyone slipped behind where we would have liked it to achieve.
It's a very popular sports ground, so it'd be good if we councillors, divisional councillors, myself, were kept up to date on that.
Absolutely, yeah. We got to understand that one's slipped behind, and we need to make sure we keep everyone up to date on that one.
Yep. I can see Richardson Park and Cameron Park. Obviously, that's scheduled to start early financial year as well.
Yes.
And good to see the Wiley Street, the BMX canteen upgrade.
Yeah, 3 parks that are, obviously well used, popular. The 2 parks you mentioned first have got some external funding as well, so we've got to make sure we stay close to those. Wiley Street does as well. So yeah, those 3 we've got a high focus on leading into this new financial year.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of Mr. Martin? Councillor Ireland, yes.
Thank you. The White Rock Boardwalk, I see that it's been taken out of the report again. I'm just wondering, would it be possible that we could have some conversations with WAGs about the tea tree funding, because it's really important that we try and keep the Sunday runners from running over White Rock, because that's women's business, and I think that it's time we tried to protect that sacred site.
The reason that the boardwalk has come off the current report is because of the discussions with the First Nations owners up there and making sure that we get agreement on how that boardwalk should look and what the impacts are, and make sure we minimise the impacts. So that is one of the projects that has been delayed for valid reasons and beyond our direct control. So that's definitely happening. From the guy that builds stuff, I'm not sure about the WAGs running track and which way they run people on the weekend, but we can go back and have a look at that, and I'll talk to the Environment and Sustainability Department and just make sure we've got whatever's going in there takes that into account.
I know you're talking to the First Nations people, but do we talk to the women? It's a women's sacred site, so do we ever talk to the women about what we're doing?
Yes.
I think that's probably the wrong council officer. Thank you.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
We do, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thanks, Mr.
Oh,
Martin.
sorry, I apologise.
No,
Sorry,
no,
Councillor
that's
Johnny.
okay.
Sorry, you did have your hand up.
Just been receiving a lot of commentary from the public about our 2 major road projects, which is Redbank Plains and Springfield Greenbank Arterial, and thank you for breaking the progress and achievements down into stages within stages. It's really confusing to the public and to get the message across on how much work is actually getting done. So, for an example, like Springfield Greenbank Arterial, the community are saying it's 400 metres of road. Why does it take so long? From my knowledge in speaking to the officers, was 13 or something services to be moved.
Yep.
There was...
Sorry, do you have a question, Councillor
I
Johnny?
do.
Yep.
I'm getting to it. There was earthworks, retaining walls, bridges. When I look at information that's publicly available and easily accessible, it's not easy to see this information, and people tend to forget the work that they seen 18 months ago.
Yes.
And it would make my job easier if that major projects portion on our website was updated. I know that there's
Sorry, again, Councillor, do you have a question at all for the council officer? I'm happy to have this
trying
as a
to
discussion.
explain my question, Chair, because it's, if you can just be patient with me, please. Is there a way to get some of this information more easily accessible?
Short answer, yes, we're working on it. And I mean, and not just we're working on it. Yeah, we've got really hopeful that in the early parts of this new financial year, we've got a new project management reporting system being implemented. So we've gone through the development phase over the last 12 months. We're into the training phase now. And it will be going live for our projects from the 1st of July. That will provide more information in a consolidated location, and we're looking to how we can link that to our civic maps that are up at the moment. So when people click on the civic maps, which is working well, but it's probably got, you know, in fairness, some fairly rudimentary information. It's good for a first check. We're going to see how we can link that civic maps to our project management information. So then it's a very more informative, I'm losing my words, more informative link to go to, and it'll have things like the projects on a page able to be seen from it. I won't have that on the 1st of July. We'll be playing with it and getting used to putting all our information in from the 1st of July, and the plan is that over, you know, by Christmas time, we'll have lots of information in there, and we'll just keep improving what the external look and feel is, and that's external to my business, so that's including for councillors, including for the public, including for other parts of council as well that tap in and need to see what our program is.
Mr Martin, are you saying, because at the moment we have a dedicated web page for Redbank Plains Road upgrade, we have another one for the Springfield Greenbank Arterial Road and the Springfield Parkway. Are you saying the URL, that link there, could be linked to the civic projects map?
I'll say could. Yes, that's definitely what we want to do, and just understand that we understand that we've got an iterative process to just improve that communications that are coming through and make our links more informative.
Thank you, Mr Martin. How much of that is actually an outcome of iVolve or dependent on iVolve? We're obviously all getting a little bit excited about the capability that will come through.
It's not dependent on iVolve. So this piece has sort of morphed with iVolve, but not dependent on it. So we identified probably 2 years ago that as the iVolve moved forward and was a multi-year project, we needed more for our capital delivery reporting, given we were hitting $100 million at a time and we had some pretty basic reporting tools. So this was set up initially as an interim measure. Then when we saw the capabilities, it's now moving side by side with iVolve. I don't know that it's been decided to turn it on as a permanent or to turn it off completely. I think it's a little bit more, we've got the luxury of being able to run this in parallel, and if it works well, then we can put our hand up and say, hey, can we include it?
Right.
If it's got a few whiskers on it and things don't quite work out, I think we still have time to include, do we need to make an amendment in iVolve and bring some other project management system in with it. So we're pretty happy that we've got something up and running now and a little bit of luxury to do them in tandem.
Thank you.
Mr Martin, just a comment. on Redbank Plains Road.
Yep.
The team have been very good at keeping people informed, and we've not had any complaints. But from people who travel on the road, when we go to community meetings, they just want to know when the end's in sight. It just seemed to have taken so long. So while the team on the ground is doing a great job, I guess we need to get a more positive message out to the rest of Redbank Plains.
The program at the moment is for May 2024, and I guess I'll hear their concerns about it taking a long time for a road project that size. I don't necessarily agree with it, but hey, I'm got a vested interest in that. So no, it's progressing well. As we said at the start, we had some dramas with the contractor getting on site to begin with. So the start date was delayed, but once they've been on site, we'd always like it to go quicker and smoother no matter what they do. But overall, we're happy with the current progress as it sits.
Thank you. I think the CEO.
Well, just to add that, of course, through you, Chair, we can organise some more communications just to continue to keep the community informed at large of the progress and the size of the project and just the progress that is being made, if that would be helpful.
Oh, there's no complaints from the people that live along it. They're
I
obviously
understand.
being the
It's the
teams
broader
working
community.
well with them. So there's no.
Yep,
it's
which
just
is
the
great.
general public.
Yep.
Are sick of all
Yep.
the changes of traffic, but you've opened up several
Absolutely.
sections of it now, so we're getting towards the end. But yeah, some nice positive talk. Let's talk about the end date.
And if I may, one area where we will need to have some very detailed communications with the councillors before going out to the public is as we progress down towards the roundabout at Kruger Parade, the ultimate alignment has, like a 2 metre differential in heights. We are going to have to come in at some stage and block off Kruger Parade to be able to achieve that height differential. So we're going to have to come in, make sure we've got our plans in place as to what that means for traffic diversions and where they'll be moved to. Come and talk to the councillors in the first instance and then take it from there into the public realm.
Yeah, I guess it's the road into Kruger School, so there'll be some issues with it. And
it's an
buses.
important route. Yeah, it's not being taken lightly, and it's but to get a 2 metre change in grade, something has to give at some stage.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Councillor
just allied to that is an issue. It's not just the school, it's a
Yes.
shopping centre there, and a lot of people in that area head to the north to Railway to go into Ipswich and whatever. I guess Eagle Street would probably be the only, which runs off Redbank Plains Road, is the only reasonable alternative.
Yeah, I don't
How
have
long
all.
might that be closed for, though? Can we make...
I'll put that up as early warning. I don't have the construction plans, the traffic diversion plans or anything like that, so take that as a early advice, and as we get that organised and where the timings and everything, we'll come with those detailed
Maybe if
plans
it's
and
not
talk to you.
February or March next year, it'd probably be a good idea.
Thank you. I think they said they'd come to us. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr Martin.
Thank you.
I think we're all probably just keen to get into discussion, so I'll move this. Do I have a seconder for this report? Thank you, Councillor Conzelman. I guess going into discussion now, I can see that there is a lot of excitement and requests for more information to be available to residents. I also note your comment too, Councillor Ireland, about Redbank Plains Road. I mean, large road projects take forever. I know, do take time. I remember with like the Ipswich motorway, when that finally commenced, it took years and years and years. But it's one of those things that needs to happen. That we have these big road projects. It does mean that there's construction there.
We have no complaints about the people who are actually doing it. And we've had no complaints from residents, but from the larger Redbank Plains area, the changes of traffic all the time, they're just getting a bit wary.
Yeah. We have the same down at Springfield with those 3 big roads, the changing traffic there. Thank you. Any other discussion? No, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. We now move on to item 6, which is the exercise of delegation report. Does anyone have any questions of the relevant council officer on this? Okay, I move that the exercise of delegation report for the period of the 21st of April to the 18th of May 2023 be received and the contents noted. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Open up for any discussion. There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. We now move on to item 7, which is the Planning and Environment Court Action Status Report. I notice that we've been having sort of questions and discussion blending, so I might move and second this so then we can, when we have questions, people can just discuss it. Would that be a smoother way for some? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I'll move this report, that the Planning Environment Court Action Status Report be received and the contents noted. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Tully. May I ask for the relevant council officer to come to the... And the matter's been moved and seconded, so if people wish to go to discussion, they can.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. Anthony Bowles, Acting Development Planning Manager.
Thank you. Do you mind giving an update on the matter that we have with the 3 waste companies?
We haven't received a judgment yet. However, I understand that judgment is imminent. We may hear potentially by the end of the month, potentially around about that length of time. So perhaps next GIW meeting I'll be able to provide a more fulsome update, but that's about all I've got.
Okay.
Is that we're getting closer to receiving a judgment, which is
Thank you.
big change from all the other updates I've provided.
Well, we've been waiting since August 21, haven't we?
That's right.
On the matter of the Wanless judicial review, I note that there was obviously that was awarded in the favour of the Deputy Premier, and
That's
the Deputy
correct.
Premier has elected not to go for costs for the local government, which is lovely.
Yes.
But Wanless have. Do you mind giving a bit of an update?
Unfortunately, there's not a huge amount I'm able to share in a public setting on that matter. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. I'll open up for any other discussion. Yes, Councillor Tully? Microphone, please.
The Division 2 item on page 154, the appeal by Spring Lake Trust against ICC, they're appealing the decision of the judge in the Planning and Environment Court. Is that to the Court of Appeal, that right of appeal?
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? No, I just note too, I know it's the Cleanaway matter, that's more the state government, that was deferred, I think, till next month.
Yes.
With how Department of Environment Science did charge the Cleanaway, the number of offences. I know that it's being delayed, I think, to next month. Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bowles.
Mayor, can I just make
Oh, yes,
comments
sorry.
before you go?
Yep, yes, Councillor.
There's a lot of interest where I don't know how many come into planning about the development on Astral Court, but Councillor Madsen and I are getting phone calls all the time about it. So I don't know how we handle. We're having a meeting on Sunday afternoon. Saturday afternoon. Sorry. Just to listen to their concerns. Not that we can do anything, but I think they just need to come and find out the process. So just letting you know that there's lots of angst currently in the community on that one.
Yes, we've received a number of submissions. Unfortunately, we're still very early in the assessment process and the application hasn't progressed to the public notification stage. So for those folks who have made submissions, they'll need to resubmit that during the public notification stage to have to be granted appeal rights should they not be happy with the decision that will eventually be made. But we're quite away from making a decision yet.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bowles.
Thank you.
This has been moved and seconded. If there's no other discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. I have no notices of motion. Matters arising. No procedural motions or formal matters. So I'll close this at 9:40. Thank you very much.